Hello, everyone. I'm Rob Smith of the In the Black VTF here at www.t3live.com with today's market wrap up. And we thought we might have a snoozer, but oftentimes in these ranges we get some natural buyers and sellers in different stocks, different sectors, things moving, and we certainly did today. You can see the S&P SPY. Doesn't look like much on the daily. A slight range extension out of this stuff. If you look at the 60-minute, you'll see like this. We slightly get out of all this mess and then just drop back in a little bit. But it was enough to get some good action going. I'll get to that in a second. What I talked about in the morning is the first things we want to try and look at is those stocks that are gapping for gap and reverse or potential gap and go. We got a few nice ones out the chute. You had United Airlines right out the chute come out here. And we'll take it back to the opening. And United Airlines gaps up, and there's different ways to play this and on different time frames. Just on a 5-minute, you can see this opening 5-minute range, shooting star, bam, you could hit it right there. You got an inside 5-minute bar right here, bam, 5 and down. So there's a few nice plays in there. If we go to the upside, Walgreens certainly your champ here on the gap and go here, and you can see here it opens, has this opening range here, and then when it takes that out, it's off to the races. Get yourself an inside 15er, and off she went. That was real nice. And then and then after I made the video, we had the news on Altera, and Intel says I'm not interested, and so we got a nice gap there, which turned out to be absolutely gorgeous gap in reverse. If you look at right on the opening here, inside 5-minute bar right off of there, and even if you missed it, you can come up here and inside 5, stuff like that. Was plenty of ways to get in on this one, and it was just fantastic. And so that's what we look for right off the opening, those gaps and how to play them. We also then want to look for any discernible strength or weaknesses within the sectors. And right out the chute, we had oil coming up, energy sector, XLE. And if you look at the XLE, not a huge move, but certainly was staying strong even when the market dipped a bit here. And you can see this on the XLE just walking up here. Ding, 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 ding. Also inside weak to the upside here. So is OIH. And so plenty of stuff to go after there. You had XEC, had a nice day. You had the slobber having a nice day. So we could pick up on that pretty quick. And as well as then looking at the weak stuff, right out the chute, it was pretty evident. VNQ. And VNQ went outside weak to the downside. If you look at the daily here, just dropping off handily, and so we could look for stuff that's going inside day and down like AVB. And once you can identify a chart that looks like this, it's going to have a tough time going up. You had a little dipsy doodle there, and then other than that, just handily underperforming. So always trying to track that as fast as possible, and then waiting for news during the day. And the one today was ShipG, and that was certainly magnificent trading too, because once it started going, there was a whole bunch of oneers to go after, and you can go after the inside ones. Usually during the day, things are a little slow, but when you have news like this, where something's just ripping, you can get in here an inside one right there, and just ride it as long as you can. We usually use a PSAR, and you see it breaks the trend in here, but then it just kind of meanders around in here, and there was some nice trading in there, and once you can get that momentum going, to hop on. Certainly there's going to be choppy areas here, but you can see a little tough to see on this chart, but there is an inside one here. We found a lot of ways to get in on this one, and it was certainly worth our while, if you will. And so one of the things that noticed here as things were developing, we knew we were going to be in a tight range in the S&P. And so we also know that there should be attempts at some range expansion during the day or over the course of the week. And so one of the things I looked for here, you can see this real choppy mess. And I watch a lot of inside bars, and sometimes you'll hear me talk about a reversal strat. And basically, the reason the inside bar works is because it's an equilibrium of a contraction of volatility, and so we're looking at some expansion of volatility. And so at this case down here, you can see the S&P SPY goes inside 15 and then drops into new lows, but comes back and counters it by hammering and opening and closing within that range. And so since this is an equilibrium here where it couldn't go to a higher high and a lower low, someone's trying to trade the direction of that stock. And so when this occurs, it's a failure to attempt to break this equilibrium to the downside. So we look to buy above here as a reversal strategy. And then if it's going to continue, it goes inside here. If it was going to fail, that inside would drop back down. That's not what happened. It goes up, sideways, inside measured move like that. And so later in the day, when the market took off, we had that in the QQQ as well. If you look at the 60-minute QQQ, you'll see this tight inside bar. Tried to break it to the downside, came back up and rejected it. Reversal strat back to the upside, and at that time was also triggered by the same pattern on the 15, reversal strat 15, inside bar rejection hammer. And so that's a few of the ways that I track stuff to see how things are going to go if you want to win resorts. Here, that also had a nice day, and we looked at that. Here, you can see that once again the reversal strat here. And sometimes people get confused when they say reversal strat. Wouldn't that mean it goes down? And in this case, ideally, we want it to be within the direction of the trend. And so when it goes up this, it's just reversing the attempt to drop in, because at this point, since it's so strong, this break here, once it fails and comes back up, all that represents is some profit taking. And then the real buyer steps back in. There's going to be some stops here, and some stops here, and pow, pow, pow takes them all out. And so that worked well also. And so if we take a look at, for tomorrow, you look at FAS, remember that was an inside day today, or last night, and it does the same thing. It goes inside day, tries to go down, and comes back and closes inside of it. So I want to watch and see how this acts once we trade above today's high tomorrow. And you can look at stocks that are still inside, like Citicorp and American Express, and the financials that were both still inside on the day, to see how all that triggers. And then just like you're watching sector versus sector and broader averages versus broader average, you can look at the stocks in the sector. And so when we had FAS did break, we had Ameriprise Financial falling apart here off the inside day breakdown. It was also inside week down, and at that point broke the inside month down, gave us a good indication of where we wanted to stay on the short side in that group. Another thing that I use here is, oftentimes people use hammers and shooting stars like this, and always looking for the bottom. The hammer should be on the bottom, shooting stars should be on the top, and that's not always the case. What I'll call them is momentum hammers and shooting stars, and what that means is it's within the trend. So you can see one here in Ameriprise. This is also inside month. But what that means is anybody down in here who got short, we know where the stops go, right here. And if the buyers step back in, things move along. And so if you looked at UUP dollar here, you can see that on the monthly basis. A momentum hammer here. Momentum hammer here. And when these work, they can be very powerful because of what they represent. And we know that once you see a spike down like this and back, we know that there's going to be shorts involved there. We also know that there's the possibility of just some profit takers getting out who might need to get back in if it starts going. And so when it works properly, you've got shorts getting triggered off the highs, as well as real buyers needing to buy. And you can see how well that worked and how well that worked. And if you looked at the China that's just taken off and blasted here, FXI, momentum hammer monthly here as well on the highs. And then some of my favorites, VXX, which any of you know me, is one of my go-to shorts because of the way it's designed, hit new all-time lows today. And SVXY here, the counter, was also inside week and up here. We knew that. So even into the last 15 minutes, I can look for something like this. 15-minute momentum hammer. Boom, there's a nice little chunk of change to finish off the day. So for tomorrow, obviously it's Friday, and we're in general still in a range, albeit that the S&P Spider took out the inside week to the upside. I can look at stuff like Tesla, which holding its gap and goes inside day here to try and continue. It's also inside week and up. I can also look at, when I see stuff like XLE having a strong day and the energy's having a strong day, what I want to look for is what stock stayed inside there, because that tells me that there's still an equilibrium building, which will either continue and help push them higher, or will negate today's move and stop dropping back and I'm in. So if you go WLL, inside day there, Amarada Hess, inside day there. You had Noble Energy, NBL is an inside day. FANG is an inside day. You have LPI, inside day. You have NFX, inside day. And you have Murphy Oil. So all those group will tell me if they're going to continue that move, that these would just be a rest and then they join the rest of the party tomorrow, or they try and negate it. We also, if you look at the Dow Jones Diamonds here on the weekly, It's still an inside week. Has not taken out last week's highs when the S&P did. So we want to see if that helps to reconfirm as well by doing that, or it stays inside and forms another tighter equilibrium. And so tomorrow, right out the chute, I can come in and I can look at all the Dow stocks that stayed inside. And there's Merck, there's Microsoft, there's McDonald's, there's American Express, there's Cat Tractor, there's a UNH here to help me gauge that. So even though we've broken up a little bit, we got a lot of earnings coming out next week. And so we're just going to play it the way we see it, as I've been saying. Fortunately, there's enough to go after during the day. As you can see, once the natural buyers and sellers step into some of this stuff, we can hop right on. So I'll be back in the morning, see what gives in the morning, see what we can sleep on, and come back and think of to finish off the week. All right, everybody, I'm Rob Smith of the In the Black VTF here at T3 Live with today's market wrap-up.